But let's move on, because controversial social media app TikTok took a hit this week as a powerful Senate committee investigating foreign interference in social media argued the company should be broken up and cut ties with China. Now, we had the exclusive report on skynews.com.au. TikTok could be forced to split from Chinese parent company ByteDance under recommendations from a Senate committee investigating foreign interference. The move would mean that TikTok Australia would need to separate from its Chinese-owned parent company after an investigation by the Senate committee. Now, they found that TikTok was attempting to hide the fact that it was clearly headquartered in China and could not tell the Senate how often Australian data had been accessed by Chinese employees. Now, that's seriously crazy stuff. Now, here is the committee chair, James Patterson, who's been great on this issue, explaining the situation.
Appearing is one thing, but actually honestly engaging with the committee and answering our questions is another. And although TikTok had the pretense of participating in the inquiry, it wasn't, in my view, a sincere and genuine participation. They came and tried to spin their corporate PR talking points to get through the inquiry and really refused to substantively engage with the serious questions that the committee had for them. You might remember that during the hearing, TikTok was not able to answer where their corporate headquarters of ByteDance is located. Well, taking that question on notice and spending a week considering it didn't improve the answer at all. They basically came back and said, we still don't know where the corporate headquarters are. In testimony before other committees, in submissions to other committees, in court filings, have described themselves as a Chinese company, as a Chinese parent company, and as a Chinese headquartered company. So it's something that they don't want to talk about anymore because it's become a political risk for the company. So as we know, their talking points are previously leaked to the media, and they are advised, where possible, to downplay their connection to the Chinese government and the Chinese Communist Party. And that's what they were trying to do. But it didn't wash at all with the committee, and that will be reflected in our report and our recommendations.
Now, James Patterson has been absolutely
It's been extraordinary. And that performance by the TikTok spokesperson where she said that, you know, the company isn't really anywhere, it's just everywhere. Its headquarters are in the cloud.
It's in Atlantis.
And it was truly astonishing. But it's an interesting one. I'm of the view, I have to say, that all social media companies are pretty evil. I'm pretty sure that all of them are harvesting data. I'm not sure how much data of value the Chinese government is getting from TikTok, apart from how to boil an egg in your dishwasher. Or
they all argue, they all harvest data. I think James's point is, though, that Western companies have strict data retention laws, logging. He's gone to them, tell us how often data's been accessed in China. They couldn't tell, or they wouldn't tell, both equally bad. But the other point is there are national security laws in China that the Chinese government can
get
take
anything
the data,
any company
but then sign a secrecy clause. So TikTok might not even know if an employee has given that data.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I have no idea that I have no idea. I have no doubt that the Chinese government is doing this. I have no doubt that it is doing it for nefarious purposes. I'm just not sure how much high value that would be.
Sure.
Let me put it another way. I'm sure the Chinese government is doing stuff that is far, far, far worse, and that any national security stuff they are trying to get, they are getting it by infiltrating our systems. We know that they've done it. We know they've done it with the Bureau of Meteorology, for example, which was almost just a phishing exercise to see if they could. And guess what? They could. And so I feel like TikTok is, in one way, not the most important thing, or in another way, just a sort of tip of the iceberg into what they're getting. And if it was to be banned, which I know you've called for, and I think I would not have a problem with that whatsoever, but I have no doubt that the Chinese government would find, with its many tentacles and its many the many levers of influence it can use, would find another way to get whatever it is it wants. And I also think, to be honest, the biggest danger for social media is not necessarily what's hidden, but what is in full view. And so I'm talking about the manipulation or suppression of certain facts, as we've seen supposedly free enterprise social media companies in the US burying perfectly legitimate stories like the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, for example, or indeed the origins of the COVID-19 virus. So I think in some ways the most sinister aspect of what social media companies are doing is hidden in plain view. And I know we're going to talk about the Sofronoff inquiry later on, and the fact that so many people seem so surprised by its findings. Well, why would that be? Because if you looked at some of these social media platforms, it's simply inconceivable that anything but the sort of progressive narrative could possibly be true. So that, I think, is the biggest threat.
Now, Caroline, I'm keen to get your reaction to what Joe was saying, particularly about, I guess there have been calls for an agnostic approach to all social media apps. There are obviously people that argue that there are bad things that happen on all of them, and maybe as a society we're not really aware of that vast influence that they do wield.
I think what Joe says is absolutely correct, but I think we work on a little bit of a spectrum, and I don't think it's necessarily just one set of rules. I think there needs to be, at the very least, a minimum standard that applies across the board, but then perhaps there's other provisions that are nuanced for particular types of data or conduct or behaviour or whatever, because I'm sure, you know, with the speed now that data can be replicated and moved around, none of us have got any idea where our data is and who has it and what they're doing with it. So I think there probably does have to be some sort of minimum. But look, I think honestly, Jack, there's a spectrum here. And I think every single government and law enforcement body, everyone is actually behind the ball on this, because the technology just moves so quickly that what we have in place just can't keep up.
It's such a good point. We're constantly playing catch up.